produce for yourself a transformation in the way that you manage your tasks, time, and your calendar. My name is Francis Wade, and welcome to the Task Management and Time Blocking Summit 2021. We are here finally, and we're live. And the question I asked, there was no idle one. The fact is that we have put together a program, and we are attempting to cause a transformation for each of the persons who attends our summit in the next 3 days. I'll say it again, a transformation in the way you manage your tasks, time, and your calendar. And by transformation, I mean that something is different between the time that you enter and the time that you leave. That something fundamental has shifted. What's that about? Well, we'll get into it in just a minute, but let me make sure that your fingers are working and that you're hearing me. Let's drop some comments in the chat so that we know that we are communicating with each other, because this is not a one-way summit where we do the talking and you do the listening and you fall asleep and go check Facebook in the meantime and all the rest of it. Hi, Olga. How are you? Hola. ¿Cómo estás? That's the extent of my Spanish, folks. Good. Hi, Frank. How are you? These are a couple of our panelists and speakers. Sibelius. Hola. Hi. Just drop a note in the chat so that I know that you are awake and are alive. Good morning, Carl. How are you? Hi, Jason. And we know that your fingers are working. And I will also tell you that Adele, hi, as you drop the comments in the chat. If you want to drop a question, and it's a good question, any question, use the Q&A tab. So this is training already, because for the next 3 days, I want you to use that Q&A tab very heavily. So you can put questions in the chat. The problem with questions in the chat is that they just scroll off the screen and disappear, and we're left all looking and trying to find the question, and we can't find it. But the Q&A tab at the very top, to the right of where it says chat, is the perfect place to drop your questions. Okay, so welcome to the summit. I'm just gonna drop a nice picture where you can just remember where you are in case you have forgotten before I get into the agenda and the logistics. So I'll be answering questions around how exactly do you produce this transformation? And what is the design that we have put together to increase the odds, higher probability, that if you pay attention, stay awake, stay away from Twitter, stay away from Instagram, schedule the times that you're going to be on email, that if you do all these things, that you'll actually be able to produce a transformation in the way you relate to your tasks, your calendar, and your time. So what's our agenda look like for the next 3 days? All right, so I'm going to pull up our agenda and we can talk through it. And I want to give you enough this morning so that you leave being able to have this transformation. Otherwise, why be here? So as you can see, I'm dropping pictures in the chat. If you click on the pictures, they'll expand to fill up the screen where you can see exactly what's in the fine print. So I just put up the day one schedule. So let's go over that real quick. So we're in the opening session with me. I'm going to invite Trevor Lorbeer to join me in just a minute. And we'll go until about 10 o'clock, at which point we'll switch over and bring up Mike Vardy and Ray Sidney Smith. And what are we going to do? Well, we're going to be talking about how to make the most of the 3 days in terms of task management and time blocking, because you came here with specific expectations around problems you wanted to solve. You're not here for no reason. And we want to make it easy for you by almost pretending that we are acting as if we are your proxy, answering certain questions around the obstacles that we have with respect to task management and time blocking, how to take them to the next level in terms of problem solving them, what happens if we don't solve them, what the new technologies are that are coming along. So we're having an in-depth discussion that should prepare you for the rest of the 3 days, okay? Then we're taking a bit of a break between 10 and 2:30. Between 11 and 2:30. And just at about 11, I'll actually bring up one of our sponsors, Nosby Teams, to share with you some of the work that they're doing very quickly. Their founder is actually going to be with us tomorrow. in a change of schedule, sort of a last minute thing. But between about 11:15 and 2:30, you'll be on your own. But I don't want you to be on your own, because we have a whole list of downloads available for you to work with, to go through, to learn from. And our speakers have spent a lot of very precious and dedicated time taking the ideas they've been working on for the last several years and putting them into a video format that can make sense for a general audience. So those downloads are going to be available for 36 hours, as you can see from the graphic. And we invite you to take your time going through them. Well, I'll explain how I recommend that you do that in just a minute. But anyway, they're going to be up for 36 hours. Then we're going to come back live at 2:30 with Trevor, Deb, and Athene. And they'll be looking at the recent history of task management, everything that has happened that brings us up to today. And it's going to be, I can anticipate it being an interesting conversation, because these are three real smart people. We only like smart people to be here at the task management, the time blocking. So. And then once their panel is over, at 3:30, we'll have a Q&A with two of our presenters, Claire Evans and Leah Tamwatana. Claire is from the UK, Leo is from Canada. And Leo happens to be the creator of Sorted, the app. And Claire is a management consultant. And then at 5 o'clock, so there's another bit of a break then between 4:15 and 5 o'clock. Our closing activity for the evening will start with a Q&A with Sina Block and Art Gelwicks, moderated by our own Dr. Frank Buck. And they'll go for 45 minutes to an hour, basically take us right up until the final closing session at 6 o'clock. And I'll be the one who will kick that off. We'll cover what happened that day, and I'll invite you to join us all in a networking session. And during the networking session, I doubt it'll last an entire hour, but here on the Remo platform, you can do all kinds of things that you cannot do on other platforms. And one of the things that you can do is sit at tables, have private conversations, and move around and meet people at will. That's just not possible in Zoom in the same way. So we're going to make exploit the full capability of Remo. And one of the key ideas of this summit is that you can make so much progress on your own, but there's way more progress that you can make in the company of other people. Okay, so all the way along, I'll show you how to find other people and interact with them. And this is one of the best ways, being at a live session and between sessions or during the networking opportunities, going to actually meet people, talking with them and chatting with them, using your video camera and getting to know them. Okay. All right. So I don't see any questions in the Q&A just yet. So if you have any, you can just drop them in there. Let me show you very quickly the schedule for tomorrow, which is Friday, and the day after. I'm going to pop them up. Once again, just click on the graphic to expand it into your screen, and you'll be able to see the details. There are lesser downloads tomorrow, and there's a bunch of downloads on Saturday. There's more Q&As on Friday, a bit less on Saturday. So today is the day with the least Q&As and the most downloads. And then it sort of flips as we go throughout the 3 days. Okay. So that's it for the agenda. See where else I wanted to take you up. Let's go into some of the logistics. So the technology being what it is means that we have to cobble together different kinds of technologies. And if you've been to the Start Here page, and I'm going to blow up the graphic from the Start Here page, this graphic with the peach background, you probably already know that this summit is taking place on 3 platforms, 3 distinct venues, and each venue serves a different purpose. So one venue is the one that we're on, is in the bottom left-hand corner, where we conduct all of the live Q&As and all the speeches, talks, discussions, not so much speeches, but really discussions, but they're all live. That's one venue. The second venue is where you download and listen to your pre-recorded content. And on the Start Here page, let me drop the link just in case you may have gotten here without going through the Start Here page. I am not sure how you would have done that. You'd have had to pull a bit of magic, but with technology, all kinds of things happen. It's amazing. So I'm going to drop this in the chat. So this is the Start Here link. And it has this graphic, the same graphic I'm going through here, along with the peach background. It has it on that page. So the pre-recorded content, when you go to that page, all you do is you click on pre-recorded content. It has separate pages for each day. Each day, the content is available for 36 hours, as I mentioned. So today's content went live this morning. It'll be available until tomorrow, Friday at around noon. Tomorrow's content goes live in the morning on Friday, stays live until Saturday at noon. And then Saturday's content goes live on Saturday morning and stays available until Sunday, which is after the conference is over, but Sunday at about midday. And that's the pre-recorded content, which is platform number 2 or venue number 2. This is a kind of a virtual lobby, so to speak. And then the third venue is maybe the most exciting because this is the one that's going to last a long, long time. It's the Mighty Networks community, and it's our online community, a place to meet people, to take training, to interact with speakers. And we've had it going on for a couple of years, and I can tell you it's going to keep going. So long after this conference is over, you can continue to chat with speakers, chat with other participants, take further training. Some speakers will probably come back and offer training on our platform. So there's a long-term engagement you can have. Some conferences you go to, you just attend, you leave, and then that's the end of it. I spoke at the ATD conference a couple of years ago in Atlanta, 10,000 people, huge event. And it was amazing that a few minutes after it finished, everyone disappeared and went on their own way. Just amazing. Anyway, we're not into that. We're online, so we can keep our folks together and we can keep going. And that's the whole idea. And that's why this offers a transformation in particular. They'll just drop the link to the community, to the Mighty Taskers community in the chat. Dale, by the way, is my wife and my colleague. I should have introduced her. She's one of the movers and shakers behind our summit. So is Andrew Dakers, by the way. He's actually manning the help desk as we speak, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. So if that's not enough detail for you in terms of where to find what, take a look at this diagram. So this is a detailed map of all the locations here in the summit. And as you can see, it's actually a clickable link. I don't have it queued up for you to go look at. But when you go to the help page, or I think it's probably connected to the Start Here page as well. Maybe I should just go and pull that up real quick. All right, guys, let me just grab that link very, very quickly. It's called the detail map, but as you see, you can just use it as your one-stop. Once you get an idea of where everything is and what everything is, you can just click around and jump around at will, move around the different locations here at the summit. There are a number of locations. This is a Google document, and each of those items is clickable. And that's the way you can find yourself around. Today, you may have noticed that I dropped a bulletin, a conference bulletin. This map is actually in the conference bulletin that I dropped. It's on the main landing page, timeblocking.summit.info. If you scroll down to the bottom, it's in our blog. So each day I'll produce a bulletin that basically covers everything for that day that I think is pertinent. And there'll also probably be some changes that you need to be aware of, and that I'll be covered in the morning bulletin. And then thirdly, lots of logistics, huh? There are, because there are a lot of moving parts to these babies. Okay, so the help desk. So we've set up a help desk that operates in real time at moments like this when people are coming in and need to get their questions answered ASAP. So right now there's a live chat going on between our help desk personnel, Andrew and Rajiv, And they're chatting with people who are asking questions about how do I register? How come this page isn't working? How come I didn't get my email? How come, and all the rest of it. And if you click on that link, it'll take you to the help desk. The graphic I just popped in is actually a tour video, a video of all the different kind of, the majority, not all the spaces, but the main spaces of the summit. Okay. So as I said, there's lots of logistics. If you have any questions, just drop them in the chat because I don't want you to miss a thing. They're not just designed in order to be annoying to you. The design of this is for you to make the most of what could be transformative. And our experience tells us that talking with other people, being in a community, having fresh ideas, going live so you can ask questions can be transformative. Okay. So where do you start? Well, I have a very specific couple set of suggestions. The first is that you take core session number 1. So core session number 1 is one that I recorded. I did it last year for the time blocking summit. And the idea here is to give you a kind of a grounding in terms of how to think about the basic ideas. And one of the basic ideas, for example, in this summit is that there's no one size fits all. And if there's no one size fits all, what does that mean? How do you interact with 30 odd different speakers and over 10 live sessions when one size doesn't fit all? But the idea behind core session number 1, and the reason I recommend that you take it, is that you need to be doing a continuous self-evaluation. So this is not a summit of gurus where you listen to the guru and do what he or she tells you to do. This is a summit that it requires your critical thinking. So you've got to be evaluating everything you hear, including what I'm telling you right now, to see, where am I at? Does that really match my reality? What's the aspiration or the new thing he's asking me to do or be? Is there a gap? Is that gap worth filling? Should I fill it now? Is it a priority? This expert evaluation is one of the major pathways we want to take you on. And that session, core session number 1, covers it. And it's in the materials for today. And I could just drop the link for core session number 1. Again, I recommend that you do this first. Everything else will make more sense after you do it. But you don't only have to do it in terms of sitting there listening. And by the way, one of the key logistical bits of advice that I have today is that you do not multitask while you're in session, that you give 100% of your attention to whatever is happening in the moment. Now, if you're in the summit, be in the summit. If you're checking email, be in email. So schedule time for email, time block it so that you can move from one flow state to the next, to the next, to the next, and get the most out of the next 3 days. I know I'm back. When I attend summits, I usually have something bad. But I recommend don't follow my example. Don't be bad. Be good. Get the most out of this experience. Put the time in. When you're actually in session, be in session. Lyndon says, LOL. So to help you to focus, we have a workbook. And the workbook was probably sent to you via email, but let me drop the link for the workbook as well. A whole bunch of links and logistics and stuff. But what you can do is when you are watching the video, the YouTube video that I just dropped in, go through the workbook. So the workbook is actually there to help you organize your thinking, help you decide what sessions to attend. So unless you have a lot of time on your hands, this is a lot of material. This is more material than you can absorb safely in 3 days, unless you don't sleep. This is why we have an all access pass, by the way, which you've probably heard about. All access pass gives you 365 days of access versus just 3. So you're not stressed trying to catch everything and listen to everything. Wendy says, unfortunately, this won't work for those of us who are working remotely. You weren't given time off to attend. The new reality, right? So many of us have to deal with. So the workbook is yours. The recommendation is that you start with core session number 1. use them together. Course Session 1 runs for about a half an hour, and it'll create a platform, a way to absorb the right kinds of information. I'll basically be asking you to evaluate where you are now and to figure out what are the best next moves for you to follow during the next 3 days, so you don't try to drink water from a fire hose. Instead, you take it in small steps and you focus on the path of improvement that would make the biggest difference for you right now, wherever you are. Okay, so check out the workbook, check out the course session. All right, so I don't see any questions in the Q&A. Oh, hang on, there are questions. My God. Are we supposed to be seeing slides? No, you're not. Man, I'm putting the graphics in the chat. I just didn't know there were questions. Will there be replays of the live sessions? Only in the All Access Pass. So we're capturing the live sessions in the All Access Pass, but not in the day-to-day during the 3 days. I'm not really comfortable being on screen at this time. How is that going to impact participating? You could, this is a modern day question, right? When you're not quite video ready because you're not quite, you don't have everything all hooked up. How exactly do you participate? Well, you can turn off your screen and it'll just show an icon and you can have conversations. So you don't have to show video, it's optional. You'll see when you go into networking mode. Is anyone seeing the questions or any acknowledgement yet? Sorry, guys. The Remo usually pops up a note that says, "Hey, Francis, you have questions." I didn't see anything pop up, so thanks for the heads up. Okay, so I'm going to bring Trevor up onto the. Okay, here we go. Trevor, and I think there might be a question in the chat. Tom is saying he missed the link to the workbook. Tom, it's right above where it says docs.google.com, right above where you are. I guess I could drop it again. Yeah. Tom, just for you, here's that link all over again. Paste. Oh, Tom already got it. Okay, guys, thanks for helping me. Okay, great. Trevor. So Trevor, guys, I invited Trevor not only because he's a sponsor, but because he has a software called Day Optimizer. And in checking out the summit, he and I have been going back and forth. He decided to support the work that we're doing. Now, I'll tell you this, as a free summit, it's not the case that we don't have costs and we don't have expenses. The only reason we can have the summit be available to the public for free is because of sponsors like Trevor. So Trevor, what is it that made you want to talk to folks who are into task management and time blocking anyway? I know you also have 2 videos for us to download, and we're going to talk to you, I think, tomorrow. When is your live Q&A?
My live Q&A is on Saturday. Yeah, Saturday at 3:30 we'll be doing the live Q&A.
So Trevor is a big supporter, and his company is a supporter. Why did you choose to support the work that we're doing?
Well, I mean, at its core, Day Optimizer is a time blocking app. It's about figuring out how to block out your day and do a specific process to do it. So, and it is not a finished app, right? I'm still in development of, I mean, we have subscribers, people use it every single day, but I'm still developing new concepts and actually interacting with the community to create new concepts of time blocking, I think is important. So it's new ways to develop strategies for being more efficient with how we manage our time.
Oh man, you're like offering us catnip. So if we go check out the Optimizer and you're asking us to give you input?
Yeah, absolutely.
You really want us all over you, giving you all kinds of ideas?
Yeah, I mean, I'm one person, so like I'm a little bit limited in what I can do right now on the app. But I'm continuing. What I do is I build a little bit of the app. I work with other people, see how people are using it, then add some more features and add some more features. And then I talk to people, and I'm developing these techniques not just in the app, but also on paper and other things. So like, for instance, the talk that is going to get released on Saturday, I think it is, the case day planning method, is a method that came out of my work developing Day Optimizer. I realized, oh, here's the specific workflow method, the step-by-step approach that helps people create more effective daily plans. That you can do on paper, but it came out of the development with Day Optimizer and then working with people, working with the users of Day Optimizer who say, hey, I want this feature, I want that feature. Hey, this is a problem I'm trying to solve. how can I solve that in Day Optimizer? And I go, well, you can't right now, but I have an idea for how you can. And then I build that into the software. And so I'm working with my users to build the best time blocking, time management software out there. Because so often people, when you ask them what they use for time management, they give you a task manager. And task management is a great discipline, but time management is also a separate one. And we need both.
Oh, when I say catnip, I mean, we have a number of experts and app developers who are attending the summit, and the different philosophies are, as you can hear, that Trevor is not just coming from throwing together some software and testing it and then flinging it out there. You can see that he's working through a particular philosophy around the way you and I manage our tasks. So it's a very human kind of exploration. Yeah, there's software and then there's technology, but behind it all, there's a very human question around what kind of support do people need, especially when they experience an increase in the number of tasks? Because if you're only managing 5 tasks, you might as well use memory. But if you're here at the summit, I imagine that you're in the scores and hundreds. And solutions like the one that Trevor is coming up with can make a profound difference. So when I say catnip, I mean, guys, do not let Trevor escape without digging. This is an opportunity for 3 days, right? For you to check out his software, check out his website, see his demo, and then find him. You could find him in the Mighty Taskers community. You can find him when he's live at different times. You might see him just hanging out at the table. Go ahead and grab him. So Trevor, you're in all kinds of trouble. I hope you have nothing else scheduled for the next 3 days.
What was that again?
I hope you have nothing else scheduled.
I'm gonna be actually trying to spend as much time in the networking room, so you can find me. My little icon will have a hat, so you'll be able to recognize me from the icon as well. Come and grab a table and chat with me, or come to some of the sessions.
Great. So you can hear Trevor's downloaded video. You can catch him here live on Remo if you can find him and catch him. And you can chat with him on Mighty Taskers in the community, on our online community. Great, Trevor. So once again, thanks for what you have allowed us to do and what you've enabled us to do to offer this to several hundred people, over the course of the next 3 days. And really appreciate your commitment and your
thank you. I think it's going to be a great conference, and I'm so happy that you organized this, and I appreciate all the effort you and your team has put together to make all this happen, because I know there's a lot of work required behind the scenes to make this happen. So I appreciate that. Great.
Thanks, Trevor. All right. So let me, if you turn off your camera and your mic, we'll bring a close to this piece of the I was going to say orientation, but it's really just a kickoff. And let's switch over to the next session. So in the next session, we'll have Ray Sidney Smith and Mike Vardy, and I'm going to bring them up to the stage, have them introduce themselves. We'll talk about what we're going to accomplish first before I have them introduce themselves. So here's Mike. And here's Ray.
Morning. Hey, good morning.
Hi,
good
Mike.
Afternoon, depending on where you are.
Good. Good, everything. Right. You're right.
Hello.
Hey, Ray, how are you?
Ray.
Hey, Mike. I can't believe last time I saw you was in Pittsburgh before there was a pandemic.
Before, pre-pandemic. But I mean, now I'm just sequestered on my island in Canada, which is legit. I am on an island in Canada. It's just a very big island.
Great, guys. I'm going to have you introduce yourself in just a moment, but let me just start the recording. And welcome everyone to a conversation around the challenges and opportunities related to task management and time blocking. What brought people here, what they should expect to accomplish while they're here over the next 3 days, why it's not okay just to settle with whatever system you happen to be using at the moment, what new technologies are that are coming up that are going to be making a difference, and how to find out about them and make the most of them during the next 3 days. In other words, how can we make sure that people have this transformation with respect to their time, calendars, and tasks. And I've invited these gentlemen to dive into this subject for the next hour. And at the end of the hour, I mentioned before, we're going to have someone from NOSB Teams give us a very quick look at their new software, which is all about managing tasks in a team environment. As you can imagine, is 10 times more difficult. It's so difficult. I've not tried it, but I can only imagine. So at the very end of the hour, I'll bring Ola up. I think Ola is here. Yes, Ola is here. I think she's from Spain, I think. But guys, could you introduce yourselves to our audience? Have us get a sense of who you are in a minute or so. Mike, you want to go first?
So I am Mike Vardy. I'm also known as the Productivityist, and I have been in the time management and task management and personal productivity space for well over a decade now. I mean, every time I do an introduction, I'm like, how many years has it been now? And it's now I'm at that point where I can say well over a decade. I coach clients both individually and in group settings. I have written several books. I've got another one that's kind of in limbo right now. Thanks, pandemic, for some, because I can't leave. So we're kind of seeing where that is. But I'm excited to be here. I love talking about this kind of stuff. It's great to be in a group of people that are both not just the presenters, but the people that are attending that are so passionate about task management and time management. I'm up way earlier than I usually would be to do this. So you got to know that I'm passionate about this stuff. And I'm based in Victoria, Canada. So right now it's just 7:00. And as a night owl, which apparently is redundant because owls are nocturnal anyways. But as somebody who stays up late, you got to know that I'm passionate about this stuff to be up this early.
Great. Thanks, Mike.
Hi there. How's it going, everybody? I'm Ray Sidney Smith. I am mostly known as a productivity podcaster, but I am just a fan of all things personal productivity. By day, actually, I teach digital marketing to small businesses through economic development agencies, and in my spare time, I do all things personal productivity. I just love talking about it, and I'm really glad to be here with, of course, the esteemed Mike Vardy, and to talk to you all today about productivity. So this will be fun.
Great. Thank you, Ray. So as I mentioned before, we're going to be your proxy in a way. We're going to take you from the moment that you decided to sign up for the summit, because nobody signs up for these things just because they have lots of spare time on their hands. There's usually some obstacles that they are foreseeing or some unwanted symptoms that they're experiencing. And they look at their task management and they say, could be better. So we're going to start all the way from that moment and take us all the way through, what would it be like to find solutions here at the summit? And why is it that solutions to task management and time blocking aren't super simple? Why can't you just take the advice of the guy who is always in Reddit, or the thing that you read on Quora, or just find an ad for the latest app? Why isn't it as simple? Why is Trevor working so hard? Why are the guy at Nosby's busting their butt? What makes it so difficult? But anyway, let's start with from the very beginning. What are the obstacles that you think people experience? The kind of the emotional, the social, the functional challenges that they feel in the moment that eventually leads them to say, I got to do something like a task management and time blocking summit. Who'd like to go first?
I'll chime in first. I think that the first thing is this sense of how can I get it all done? How am I able to keep up? How I have so many demands on my time and attention and all these things. And because there's so many inputs now from so many different areas, email, direct messaging, interpersonal interaction when we actually can see each other in person, things like that. It's just, there's a lot of inputs and everything's coming towards you, and you're trying to figure out what competing priority should get, precedence over another. And I think that's where it starts. It starts actually in the, how can I get as much done as possible? That's what, and that's what the tool will do. And as somebody who studied this over, like I said, a long period of time, and I know, Ray, you feel this, I assume you feel the same, Ray. We've had these conversations before. It transforms from, I must get as much done as possible, and these tools will help me, to, this tool will help me get the right things done. This tool will help me kind of craft how my day will look. It will allow me to see things that need to come up when they need to come up. But I think the initial thing, honestly, the initial obstacle they're trying to overcome is this overwhelm, this overload, and they need something to put everything in. And I think the danger is, which is why you have to get to that next step, which is, okay, the tool isn't just going to do it on its own. Like the tool is there to, I mean, it's kind of like, you know, having an instant pot at home, right? Where it can cook a whole bunch of different things, but unless you actually know how to use it, you're not going to get great results out of it. So that's where I think people start. And then from there, hopefully there's a maturation, there's a nurturing, a fostering of these tools and of the process that you bring to the tools, whether it's, you know, the getting things done methodology, the Eisenhower matrix, you know, the idea of using a time blocking strategy, or even using, you know, the framework that I teach, which is time crafting, bringing that to the table and then saying, okay, now I can use this inside of this tool. And now the overwhelm, the overload starts to go away. And then you actually start to say, hey, you know, I'm moving things forward on a regular basis. I'm getting the right things done.
Yeah. Yeah, in kind of
Great,
continuance
great.
of what Mike is talking about, I always think about it from the perspective that life is an ever-changing river, and at each one of the bends in the river, you kind of either bump up against the bank or you learn how to navigate in the center of the waters. And those are things like having a child, having a loss in the family, changing job roles, even minor job role changes. You know, you're going to take on this new project and now be added onto this team, or the company's downsizing and you want to make yourself feel more valuable to the company in that way. You decide to start a new relationship, you end a relationship. All of those things along the river of life cause these productivity impacts that we don't take to heart until we realize that they've actually done something to us. They've affected us in some way, shape, or form. And our systems need to change. Our tools need to change. Our strategies and tactics need to change. And I think that's when people feel the most pain, right? It's just a pain point. And they realize, oh, something needs to, you know, be different. And that's frequently when I see people really try to address the problem with many times Band-Aids, but, you know, we call those hacks, right? You know, productivity hacks. They're good, but, you know, I think it's always good to have a system, and things like Mike's system and others that have proffered holistic approaches to helping us be more productive aren't just about dealing with that one bump against the riverbank. It's about being able to center ourselves on the river and keep flowing forward in the way that we want to, at the speed that we want to.
What's fascinating too, Ray, is that you sometimes don't. It could be the smallest thing that triggers it.
Oh yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like you could think it's this big move, and you're like, it could be your kid misses the bus for the third time in a row, and it's the thing that triggers you. Like, you don't know, and that's it's this marathon and not a sprint. And I've always said to people, like, I hate to break it to you, you're never gonna get it all done. I mean, there's going to always be when you're done. You're done. Like, you're done. That's it. So you might as well have a way to kind of filter this stuff and make it work for you, and know that, yeah, it's going to require, it's like a garden, like you said. It's like, you know, you're going to have to tend to it regularly. You can't just set it and forget it. And I think the great thing about this summit is that you're not just going to hear it from one set of tactics. You're not going to hear from one person. You're going to be able to do that old adage of, you know, that Bruce Lee quote, like, take in what you find from one person that's useful, toss aside what isn't, and then add your own. Having a bunch of different voices here is going to be really beneficial, because that's what you need. There's not just a one size fits all approach to this. And that's what I love about you putting this summit together, Francis, and your team, is the fact that you're bringing a whole bunch of voices together that are going to help people with this very problem.
Thanks. That's absolutely right. And by the way, guys, as you're listening, so I want you not to be listening like you're watching TV, because TV listening is not transformational. We want you to engage. So let me ask you, Ray used the word pain point. I like the term unwanted symptom. What's the thing that brought you to the summit? What's the point of stress? What's the thing you want to change? What's the obstacle you're trying to get over? What's the emotional experience? Just put it in the chat. Let's get some examples up that come from your own experience. And this is where, you know, you get to be really honest if you'd like. I invite you to be really honest. Sibelius says a sensation of lack of control. Wow. If the last year has been about a lack of control. It's of all the years I've lived, last year was the one that I felt I had the least control. Overwhelm and procrastination, says Sharon. Thanks, Sharon. Lyndon says recovering from burnout, trying to reintegrate me without taking on the wrong things. And Andres says, I'm looking for new ideas for my toolbox. Productivity is human, not machine-like, and we need to integrate that. Great. Wendy, overwhelmed with the increase in duties and responsibilities due to remote working. So a lot of people, Wendy, have experienced a spike in, so there's all the work tasks that you needed to do. I know you need to do a bunch of home tasks, and you need to do them all together in the same day, all of a sudden. Julie says, creating a space for deep work, life that is more hectic. So, and Ola says, make it more positive, the constant desire to become better, to improve yourself. And that's not easy as downloading an app or following, just like you guys said, it's not as easy as just following a guru. You've got to sort through a number of different points of view, make sense of them, and come up with your own path. That's the best way.
You said simple right out of the gate. Simple and easy are different, right? Easy, it's not. I mean, simple is better because simple, right. There's less likelihood of it breaking if it's simple, right? Easy, we're not saying this is easy at all.
Right. Complexity and difficulty are two different things, and people consistently conflate those two things. More complex things can become more difficult, but simple things are not easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a quote by Thoreau, isn't there?
But yeah,
it was productive.
There's one. There's something about not giving a fig for simplicity on this side of
something
complexity.
Like that.
Someone drop it in the chat. It's something like that, but somebody Google it quick and put us out of our misery, because it's a great quote for kind of this moment that if you get simple too quickly, you end up with nonsense. So you've got to sort of endure a 3-day process, for example, so that you get solutions on the other side of complexity that are then simple. Is that making sense?
Yes.
Guys,
And
but I think that's
I want to put in kind of just a note here, because while I said pain point, I don't think that's the only thing that happens. I think that there is, we had actually this conversation a couple of days ago, Francis, in the live stream we did, which was about the idea of people who are approaching things from a fear-based perspective versus from a joy-based perspective. And there are both of those. Motivation can be on that spectrum of things that are great and you want them better, and things are somehow needing improvement and you want to make those better. So you could be on either end of that spectrum in terms of wanting to be more productive because things are going well. Like that's just a factor of life, and we need to actually have a joy-centered approach to productivity as much as we have a course correction approach.
There it is. I see it in the chat. What is it? I didn't give a fig about simplicity on this side of complexity, but I give my right arm for simplicity on the other side of complexity. Oh, it's Wendell Holmes. Oliver Wendell Holmes. Okay. All you see is a black and white photo of a man with like from the olden times. And you're like, all right, it's Thoreau, it's Emerson. I don't know. What's interesting though is that I think, and I've noticed this through especially during the pandemic. And I mean, I don't want to center on this, but because the world has forcibly slowed down to a degree, especially at the beginning when people were trying to figure stuff out, it's actually allowed people to step back and figure out, okay, what do I need to do? Like the optimizing piece you talked about with Trevor, like the ability to say, okay, I want to kind of tweak things a bit. I want to make things a little bit better. You also get to see what really you might have been neglecting. Right. So I think that there's been a lot of strife with the pandemic. No doubt. These virtual summits are the nom de rigueur now because it's all you can do. But there are some things that have happened where it's like where I've sat back and go, okay, what do I need now that there's not as much flooding at me not maybe at the same pace, but the same level of demand. Right. Like, there's this understanding and a bit of grace. At least I've experienced that. That you kind of have a better chance to assess. And I think the timing of this summit is really great because things are starting to kick back up again globally, I think, in a lot of ways. So to be able to come out of it and go, okay, well, now I've got myself straight. And by the way, one of the things that comes up is the work from home thing. I noticed that in the chat. people seem to think that the people who were working from home before were fine. Like, oh, Mike, you were fine because you worked from home for the better part of, no, because everyone's home. So it changes the dynamic. Like all of a sudden you had your office or your workspace to yourself, and then everybody's here. So when the work from home strategies that worked for people who did work from home changed as well, not just the people that were thrust into it, but the people that were having others thrust into that environment changed as well. So there was a lot of different things that were going on. And to be able to create blocks of time and strategize better around your tasks there's been, I think, this real renaissance in understanding, okay, how do I make the best use of this time? Because you just never know when it's going to be truncated, infiltrated, and all those things in between.
Yes. So arguably the kind of people who attend a summit like this are not your average person. These are folks, guys, well, you tell us if I'm wrong, but you're folks who care about your productivity, but not just because it starts with P and ends with Y. You actually have big aspirations for yourself, all the way from, it could be making more money, it could be raising your children in a very particular way. It could be getting involved locally in your community. It could be changing the planet and being involved in climate change. People who have big aspirations experience the problem of having lots of projects. And as a result, they have lots of tasks. And they usually end up with more tasks than the average person, just because they're thinking, how can I make this happen? How can I do this? How can I do that? And they find themselves struggling with overcommitment, yes, but their mind keeps creating tasks, even though they know they'll never be able to do all of them. And during the pandemic, folks ran into difficulties and ran into places where their aspirations weren't being fulfilled. So question for you, if that's true, and the kind of person who attends this or summit is a kind of a slightly type A, very committed, very focused person, what's it like when that person doesn't solve that problem that we're talking about, the problems that they face, the obstacles that they face of managing their tasks and their time in the way that they want? What's that experience?
Ray, you go first. I'll let you go first. I'll let you go first.
So ask the question in other words, Francis. What are you trying to get at for folks?
What's the experience like of someone who attends a summit who is essentially a high achiever, wants to achieve more, and has experienced obstacles and challenges in the last year, and they still have their aspirations that they want to meet, but it's become harder.
This is the right place to be, right? The idea is to look to strategies and methods that are going to help you infuse in your own system. As I always say, you have a productivity system. You're not learning a productivity system. You are adopting bits and pieces. This is kind of like Jeet Kune Do of the Bruce Lee origins. You are taking bits and pieces from other people's. Having a martial arts background, I tend to fall on those analogies. But Bruce Lee, the famous, you know him as the famous, kung fu person, but he developed.
Oh my God!
Right next to my desk.
Yes. He and I actually share a birthday, so he's near and dear to my heart. But we also share an ethnic origin. But the idea here is that we pull from other things and we make them our own. Right. And so if we, Julie saying that we planned that, we did not plan that, Julie. Just good happenstance. But the point is that we have all of these things that we can learn. We need to actually be discerning and skeptical and good-hearted about pulling together the pieces that can make our systems work well for us. And what worked well for you when you were a teenager is not going to work well for you when you're in young adulthood, which is not going to work for you when you are a senior level executive or when you're a small business owner. Those things all change. And you need to spend this time thinking through, okay, what has happened in the course of the pandemic that disrupted work, right? So disruption and interruption, I kind of think of as two different things. That is, one comes from internal, one comes from external sources. But if we think about the the concept of distraction and then those interruptions, right? We want to be able to think about what can we do in the course of our next 3-6 months that will infuse our systems with greater resilience and greater levels of really picking up the pace in terms of our projects. And I'm not really bothered by the idea that you have a lot of projects. I'm not bothered by the idea that you have a lot of goals. What I'm bothered with is the lack of focus on any one individual one when you're working on it, right? Having that level of attention is a faculty of the mind versus focus, which is goal orientation in my perspective. We need both of those. It's great that you have goal orientation. Now it's about being able to direct that focus, that attention in the right ways with the right tools. So as we make our way through the summit, what you want to really do is just kind of like pick and choose the right things for the right time, understanding the context of where you are now, whether it's the pandemic or whether it's one of those twists in the river. You get to make the choices based on that. I don't see the pandemic as being a like some grand problem more than it is a series of a lot of really small challenges that need to be overcome. And if you can identify each of those challenges for you uniquely, which for me it's my dog barking at home in the midst of things, which remarkably he's not doing right now, right? That's a problem for me. I know that I need to solve for that problem, and that's going to impact my productivity in a positive way.
I think the biggest thing, and what really bothers me, is that more people should attend summits like these. Not just the people who want to achieve a lot of these high aspirations. Most people just need permission to be able to employ some of the things that are going to be talked about. They just feel like, oh, it's okay for me to do this. Most people, when I come across and start talking about productivity and time management, they are, like I said, they're overwhelmed, they're overloaded. They just feel kind of lost. We see a couple people saying they keep starting over. They start from scratch. We all screw up. The people that are going to talk to you over the course of this summit, and we screw up a lot. We test things. That's why we get to do what we do. I mean, think about the best athletes in professional athletes. They fail a lot more than they succeed when it comes to doing. I mean, when they're swinging the bat at the plate, they're the best hitters in baseball don't even hit the ball 40% of the time. Right. So you got to give yourself some grace. I think that's something that we can take away from this. The pandemic in particular, is we need to have a level of grace about ourselves when it comes to these things. We have to, what this summit will teach you is ways to make sure that you're not looking at your to-do list and going, oh my goodness, these things that I didn't get done today, I've got to move to tomorrow. That's a terrible idea, because you're just moving the problem from one place to another. Instead, you're going to be a bit more tactical about it. But the thing is, it's more about giving yourself permission not to just put them to tomorrow. Managing expectations. I mean, Ray alluded to this. Really, productivity and time management is all about things like intention, attention, clarity, focus, expectations, these skills that we actually can control and can command, because time moves on whether we want it to or not. It's now we've been almost a half hour into this. We couldn't stop time and say, okay, we gotta make our points. So hold on, clock, let's wait. It doesn't work that way. So I think the biggest thing is as Ray alluded to, and we talked about earlier, is you're going to pick some of the things that resonate with you. If you see that happening, make note of it, get it at it, capture it. Don't just say, oh, I'll remember that. That's a classic error. I mean, that's, put it down and say, you know what? I like the idea of, time blocking. I like the idea of, I'm going to be talking about the nuances between two different types of blocking out time. Mike, I like that idea of time theming. I like this. I like Mark, make note of that and then just try it. And I think the other thing too is that, and this happens for both sides, is don't try to do all the things at once. That's, when people start over, when they're like, I tear it all down and start from scratch, that's a recipe for disaster as well.
Right.
Make a slight change. When you're driving to try to get to a destination and you take a wrong turn, you don't go back home and then try to do it again, right? You go, okay, well, I'll take the next turn. I'll course correct. That's all you really need to do, because going back home is going to take you back in a direction that you did not want to go in. So just give yourself some grace, give yourself permission. All of us are going to give you permission to go, hey, try this, but just don't show up and take all the things and go, let me add this all at once. That's, like I said, it's a recipe for disaster. It's going to actually increase your overwhelm and overload. And then that part of your brain that goes, see, I told you, just do things the way you've always done them. That part will definitely take hold, and then you'll be back where you started, which is not where you want to be.
Yeah. Wow, so well said, guys. I was thinking, yet outside of these, I can't say these four walls, outside of this environment where we're being very nuanced and very compassionate with ourselves, and we're talking about taking things in small steps, and we're talking about being very discerning. The voices of people like the three of us in the world who sell productivity advice, often that voice says, this is really easy, implying that there's something wrong with you. Like the posts, particularly around time blocking, 99% of them they come from a point of view that says this is simple and anybody can do it, which implies that it will always be easy, which we know isn't true. It's easy when you're time blocking one or two things. When the one or two become 20, 30, 40, or 100, then something else needs to happen. So there are voices out there that say, this is all very easy. It's very simple. Just follow my 1, 2, and 3-step formula. And that's what we're bombarded with on a daily basis if we're looking for task management and time blocking solutions. We have to weed through them. So it's not a matter of simply accepting anything. Ray talked about being discerning, and you guys have talked about sort of boiling it down into the small steps and forgiving yourself. What other advice do you give people as they go through the 3 days so they don't end up either discarding something because it doesn't sound simple enough, or I can't figure out the small piece for me, so I'm going to give up, or it sounds simple, I'll throw away everything that I'm doing now and follow this person's method instead of what I was doing before? What additional advice can you give along those lines that would help people evaluate? They're going to hear 30-something different speakers talking. That's a lot of points of view. But what else can you tell them that would help them make the most of what they hear as they go through listening to the 10th person
I think that
speak?
The biggest thing that you can do is I throw this out a lot, capture everything and regret nothing. Like, get it out of you. I mean, when you have an idea, like, there are a lot of people that will have this idea. Oh, here's a great example. I want to go to Australia. When this pandemic's over, I want to go to I want to go to places I've never been to before. I've been to the United States a lot. I want to start traveling to other places. I captured that. Now, part of my brain goes, well, I mean, you don't know when you're going to be able to go. Who knows when you're going to be able to go? So what's the point of writing it down right now? That part of me is always there. Stephen Pressfield calls this the resistance, right? You can call it whatever you want. Monkey. I know Seth Godin calls it the monkey mind. I mean, Merlin Mann's called it. Everyone has a name for it, but ultimately, there's that part of your brain, the amygdala, the primitive part that just wants to survive. That's all it wants to do. And then there's the prefrontal cortex, that higher reasoning part that wants to thrive. Try to tap into that part. When your brain is telling you, oh, I don't think I'm ever going to use this idea, that's probably a signal that you might. So get it out of your head and write it down, right? The other thing is try to relate it to outside of work. Try to make it as universal as possible. When people talk about time blocking, you probably are already doing it to a degree. I mean, if you watch football, American football, for 3 hours on a Sunday, that's time blocking. You're setting aside 3 hours to watch football, right? If you're watching a television show when it's on TV, like WandaVision is coming on tonight, like I could watch it at any given time. So I have the flexibility, but if I want to sit and watch it with my kids, I'm going to set aside when my son gets home from school at 3 o'clock, from 3 to 4, we're going to watch it. That is a form of time blocking. You're already kind of doing it. So if you can relate it to things that go beyond the work and make it so that it applies to you both at work, at home, because let's face it, everything's kind of integrated now anyway. I don't like the term work-life balance. Let's just call it balance. Because it's all, like that's putting an adjective in front of it doesn't make any sense to me, at least at this point. So number one, capture everything, and regret nothing. And number two, try to apply some of these. Think beyond well, I can't use this at work. I can't possibly time block at work because I'm working a 9 to 5 and there's no way. Well, could you do it in real life? Could you do it, quote, real life outside of work? Think about it in practical applications on a universal scale. That's going to be super helpful.
I would use
Ray.
The great Dr. Gary Klein wrote a book called The Power of Intuition, and he defines intuition, I think, a little bit differently than how we tend to think about intuition as being something maybe more mythological and mythical in that sense. But he basically, if I could define it very in the vernacular, is to say that we're using past experience to inform our present choices. And so intuition itself is something that we can use when we're being bombarded with a lot of new ideas, and taking, and in furtherance of Mike's concept here, right? We can take all the things that we learned here at the Task Management and Time Blocking Summit, and we can run it through that filter. And we can run it through kind of the Einsteinian, concept of, are the things that we were doing before serving us, and are we getting the same results, or are we getting different results from it? If the things that are the same results are that we're getting more productivity out of the things that we're adopting, great, then keep doing that. But if they're running you up against a wall, and I don't know if you've ever run into a brick wall, but it's not fun. If you keep running into that brick wall productivity wise, then change, do something different, adopt some different strategies.
I want to hear about the time you.
There was that time I
did you
drank
guys
too
run
much,
into brick walls?
The brick wall. Tell me, was that alcohol involved in that?
Brick wall. I know that it hurts. You watch enough YouTube. You watch enough YouTube. You see people running into brick walls. That's
influencers in the wild, that Instagram channel or whatever.
yeah. Unfortunately,
but yeah.
So, guys, great question from James.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
Should I ask the question now, or do you want? Okay. Do you think that when people come out of the pandemic, they will have genuinely learn any new kind of working, or just try to do more to catch up?
Some will,
I had
and some
someone
won't.
ask me this question earlier. What do you
I
guys
think some
think?
will and some won't. I mean, I think that, again, the pandemic has given people pause, right? Like, it's been a forced pause in a lot of ways. And it's been, I mean, think about it this way. The work from home movement really, I mean, everyone's talking about, Laura Vanderkam released a book on working from home. I can't tell you how many podcast guest requests I've had of like, I've got a new book about working from home. That it's been a big thing. That was going to happen. Working from home was going to happen. This just thrusted into it that much faster.
Right.
It sped up innovation. Think about Clubhouse. Clubhouse took off this audio. And again, that's the thing, is I live in this bubble. Some people are like, what's Clubhouse? What's Clubhouse? Clubhouse is this, it basically took the elements of going to a live event, right? And audio, and combined them so that people could talk in real time. That wouldn't have taken off, I think, as much as it has, had it not been for the pandemic. Things, there's this commercial that I keep getting on Facebook, which is a button that either glows green or glows red, and it's the unmute mute button. So if you're on Zoom, you've got this glowing button and it connects to it, so that way it knows whether you're mute. That problem would not have been there right away had it not been, we've been thrust into this. People would have gotten used to it, right? So I think there's going to be some people that are going to come out of this going, you know what, I have a clearer idea of what I want to be doing. I'm going to adopt these new tactics. And there is now, we've moved maybe away from more of a time-based workforce, where it's like, we've got to put in your 40 hours and you've got to do this, to a results-based one. Hey, I don't care necessarily when you work, just get the job done. People are talking more about key performance indicators and OKRs and all this stuff. That stuff's going to take hold a bit more. But for some people, it's just going to be like, okay, we're going back to the way it was. Thank goodness this is over. And, when people talk about when things go back to the way they were, there's no going back to the way it was. I mean, that didn't happen. That wasn't going to happen with or without a pandemic. So I think some people are going to take this and go, this is an opportunity to reframe and restructure. And then others are going to they've just been holding their breaths, waiting till they can get back to the way that they did things before, which is managing tasks by email and writing things down in a bunch of different places. Fingers crossed that they get it all done.
Yeah, I think Mike hit the nail on the head there. I think There are going to be organizations that choose to make some policy changes that will affect people positively. I've heard a lot of organizations saying we're going to have now more hybridization of our workforce. It's obviously going to save in real estate. That will drive down some costs in urban centers, which will of course make life a little bit maybe more affordable in those places. Maybe, but the goal, of course, is to have people live liberal lives, right? And we tend to talk about liberal lives as free lives. Liberal societies want freedom, and giving us more freedom is a good thing on one side. It also creates idle time in which what happens with idle hands, right? So we want to be able to figure out what we're doing with that time from a personal and societal perspective. And so I think that's the bigger question here, which is, as we go forward, the pandemic was an accelerant to things that were already set into place. That is remote work, virtual work, greater technology in the workplace, because you bet even if you go back to a capacity in-person environment, you're still going to have Slack. You're still going to have technologies that create a bombarding of information and communication. What can we do to limit those things healthfully so that we can actually have greater productivity, labor productivity in organizations that justify to management, to the almighty dollar, so to speak, so that we can actually say, you know what, let's actually give more back to people in time, give them their time back, get the same performance, get the same results, and actually do more. Like, can the company decide that we're going to donate some of that time back to charity? Are we going to be able to do more for people in terms of helping people with childcare and creating more balanced societies? There's all kinds of things we can do thanks to this kind of reset moment with the pandemic. And I think we should be asking bigger questions than, are we just going to go back to work in the office? We should be asking, what, because of this, because the pandemic has proven that a vast majority of the workforce can work remotely, what can we do in that way that will help society be a better, greater global society? And start from that point. We're shooting too low. We're shooting at the hip, and we should be shooting for the stars. And not just because we've landed on Mars recently, but again, I think, but because we really do have the opportunity to bring the world together. This is a global pandemic, and that means we have to solve this globally. And I think that's an opportunity for great collaboration, great cooperation, and having greater goals than just individual productivity. We start there, but we have to have higher aspirations. That's what I think this pandemic has really said to me.
I think, just really quickly, I think on the heels of that is that everyone that's attending this summit, whether you're watching it live, recording, whatever, I think that one of the choices that you can make is to take what you've learned here and tell other people that would not normally come to something like this, because they aren't used to this kind of stuff. I mean, we live in this kind of bubble to a degree, right? I mean, and that's one of the things I've learned over the years of doing this. And I know Ray and Francis, you have as well, is that we know what GTD stands for. We know about, I mean, there was a comment on Twitter the other day about, why do we need a book like A World Without Email from Cal Newport? Like, isn't there, Michael Slavinsky talks about this, like the no email, no office workspace. And my answer was pretty simple. We live in this bubble, and a lot of people in the world don't know about NOSB. They don't know about, notice how I pronounced it both ways, just in case I did it wrong one way or the other. But
Tato.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is that there are people that are going to go to a bookstore eventually, or go on Amazon, see Cal Newport's new book and go, A World Without Email, that's not possible. Or A World Without Email, that sounds amazing. And they would never have heard about the concepts of what he's going to necessarily talk about. So we do need, quote, evangelists, prophets, whatever, people that are at this summit, not just the people that are going to be presenting, but the people attending need to be able to leave here and go, you know what? Hey, have you tried time blocking? Like, oh yeah, no, I haven't. Well, you probably have. Like, look, you've blocked at this time for no meetings. That's a time block. What if you tried it here? Like, start to spread that a bit, and it's gonna make the world a better place. It may not make it as productive as you'd like to see it, but you're gonna help people by sharing these messages with them that otherwise wouldn't be exposed to them. So I encourage you, above all, like, we talked earlier about why would you write these things down? All these things you're going to learn. They may not necessarily help you out of the gate, but they might help somebody else. And if they're going to help somebody else, I think it's a good personal choice to make it, not necessarily your responsibility, but a good personal choice to say, hey, you know, I'm going to take that to Jill back at, you know, when I Zoom with her next time, or I'm going to take it to Gary because Gary struggles with this. I think that that's a really valuable thing that you can take away from this.
I want to just jump on this because Andre in the chat is talking about this idea of the 24-hour work week, and we've had ideas of people talking about, you know, a 4-day work week, and you know, this is of course on the heels of you know, over a decade ago now, you know, Tim Ferriss published the 4-day work week, and how we can basically reduce time as some magical panacea for work. It is not about the time you spend. It is about the effort expended to be able to get the outcomes that are necessary for an organization.
Yeah.
Not to be trite about it, but businesses and organizations, while they speak a good game about caring about people, what they ultimately want to do are affect the missions of those businesses and organizations. And that could be maximizing profitability, which, you know, is like making cash, but it could also be doing and making outcomes for its constituents, right? And in the case of a nonprofit or an NGO, they are driven toward those ends. And the justification of the means to those ends need to be thought more by the individuals. And what I love about something like this, where we're at a summit where people are being given agency to think through these problems. To Andre's point, yes, I think that we all have agency in saying, I am not going to work a never-ending workday. And by challenging the status quo, it's not because we want to be contrarians, but it's because it just takes that one person, that person wearing the blue shirt and not in a sea of red shirts, to give everybody just pause to say, okay, let me be skeptical in the skeptics realm, capital S, and say, listen, I just want to be different, not because for the sake of it, but because that will actually evoke potential positive change globally. I can set a standard. I can model good behavior and know that I can work a standard 4-day work week. Notice how I say standard 4-day work week, and be able to get the same results for the organizations that I'm working for the people that are in my life, my community, my family, my spouse, or otherwise, and not be harried, not be tugged in different directions, not capable of feeling fulfilled in my life, not capable of getting all the things I want to get done in a given day. And by modeling that behavior, we actually change the world. And you don't have to be a hero. You don't have to be a superhero in order to be able to do those things. You can just live your life and do the things you need to do. And I think that's one of those things where I just, you know, I know that it's really great to hear all of the people stand on the stage and rah about those things, but it's really the unsung heroes. It's the work of people behind the scenes, just living their life, doing the good work that they do, that ends up being a really good model for the behavior of a fulfilling the good life, right? That concept of the good life.
And you know what, to piggyback off of that, you know, Tim Ferriss talks about the 4-hour work week. Tim doesn't mean that he only works for 4 hours. Let's be absolutely clear about that. It just feels like he has to work for 4 hours. That's really what it boils down to. So it's more about effort expended than time spent. And I think that's what the idea of, there are some people that are going to be like, you don't need to work 40 hours. You know, there's some people that will what I think comes out of this. And as someone who's a night owl, the 9 to 5 drives me nuts, and it drives some people. They're naturally predisposed to be early risers, and some people are naturally disposed to be late people. And if you can leverage your team, your workforce, to play off those strengths rather than expose weaknesses and allow effort to be the driver, as opposed to, well, how much time did you spend on that? You're going to see far better results, because you can control effort. You can command effort far greater than you can control or command time.
Right, and this comes to the Parkinson's law, right? So, like, sorry, Francis, I'm going to cut you off, but but the idea here is that Parkinson's law, right? Is, you know, the law basically states that work expands to the time you give it, right? And this goes to the point that there's actually a misunderstanding, because an hour of time that I put in may not be the same amount of effort in the same hour as somebody who is, just stamping documents and not really caring about life. They're not engaged in their work. My highly engaged hour of work is very different than a highly disengaged hour's worth of work. And so we can't constantly look at time as being the only metric for how things are worked on. We also have to think about how much effort goes into it and how much effort is being put into it in order for that to be an effective, fruitful time spent. And so it's a little bit more complex than that. Back to that complexity issue.
Just kidding, Francis.
He's just giving me a hard time. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Ray. Give me a hard time. Let's tease the host. I had the most fascinating conversation with Dan Markovitz, and I just dropped his pre-recording, not the link, but the graphic for his pre-recording. And during the conversation that I had with him, it was an interview style discussion. We came up with a bit of a realization that in 3 to 6 month time or some period of time, all of a sudden there's going to be a mass migration of people from working at home to working in the office. And I read somewhere, someone predicted that when that migration has settled down, that the office will be a place that you go to socialize, but you do your real work at home. You do your best work at home. And that got me thinking, and it ties in with all the things that you've mentioned. Is there about to be like an apocalypse of sorts when this mass migration is accompanied by mass dissatisfaction, where managers and executives try to manage people the way they used to before? And now you've learned that you're the most productive over your kitchen table when nobody else is around. And you never have been that productive when you were in the office. People have experienced it. They read about it, thought it might happen one day, not in my lifetime, and then they actually had it for a year, for example. Or you just take a simple thing like being able to take a nap when you want to. All the research says that napping makes you more effective and more alert. Or all these things that we kind of have known, because the things you mentioned, the both of you, are things that have been talked about for a long time, just not experienced. And the question is, when this mass migration happens, is it that the genie is out of the bottle and that there is going to be this ongoing tussle between those who expect things to be the way they were and those who have now experienced them in a new way and are like, hell no, I don't want to commute and waste 3 hours in traffic every day and use up half of my life when I could be doing it. I can imagine someone on the highway thinking, this hour and a half that I'm spending driving every day, I got so much done during the pandemic because all of a sudden I used it. For the first time, I was able to use that time effectively instead of being stuck in traffic. Why can't I get that time back? What do you think of this idea that there's going to be a clash, an opening up, an opportunity to use kind of what Ray is pointing out? There's an opportunity,
I think, that
to grasp a hold of so that things don't just go back to the way they were.
I think that it's going to happen because one of the things that we've lost, a lot of people felt they've lost over the past year, is time. Time to do what they really wanted to do. Things that they took for granted, being able to get on a plane and go where they wanted to go just, my wife and I had this discussion where she goes, I just want to go to a restaurant with friends and socialize and not have to sit 6 feet apart and all that stuff. I think it's going to be a generational challenge though, because I think there's people that will always, that will be, hey, this is the way we worked. And I think it's going to be an older set, to be honest. That's going to be like, well, this is the way we've worked and we're going to get back to it because this is what's worked before. And it won't work as effectively now because we've experienced the other. So I think that ultimately it's the same thing that we're seeing with, and I've come across this with organizations where email was a management tool, like the CEOs that were in their 50s, 60s that were not familiar with some of these tools were using email to manage tasks, and they got forced into using a tool like Asana or ClickUp or Trello because everybody else was, and it was somebody that kind of pointed out, hey, look, this is going to help the bottom line. The bottom line will be improved if we start using this instead of email, and that's the language that they understood. So I think that the people that are going to be hesitant to be okay with this new way of this new model of working. Dad mentions it here. You like have some flexible office time. I think you're going to have hubs. I think you are. You're going to have I think it's Shopify that's going to have, they're still renting office spaces, but they're mainly for people to get together to have that in-person communication, but largely they're going to be working from home. I think that you're going to need those connections. And I think there's going to be some hesitance from some people who have, for most of their lives worked, 9 to 5 office or 8 to 8 office or whatever. They're just like people were thrust into the work from home environment. They're going to be very hesitant to come out of it. And I think you're going to see there will be a clash of sorts, but ultimately what's going to end up, winning out is, will it help our bottom line? Will it help us be more productive? Oh no, I don't want to lose these people to a team that's going to have more flexibility in their schedules and their time. And I think you're going to see a change. You're also, and it's second order thinking. Ray alluded to real estate, commercial real estate, places like New York City, San Francisco, Austin. I mean, the commercial real estate market is going to have some issues because people are bailing out of there. So that's going to have an effect. We don't think about it's the same thing that I hear when people say, well, why should I, why should I wear a mask if it's protecting from COVID? It's not just protecting from COVID-19. If there's a car accident on the highway and 43 people need to go to the hospital because of a pileup, but you've got all of your beds taken up by people who have COVID-19, there's some people who legitimately were in a car accident that may not be able to get beds because of it. So it's second order thinking that we have to start using here. And I think the people that do use that and implement that strategy are going to be more attuned and more likely to succeed post-pandemic because they're going to say, hey, you know what? I'm more effective from home. I'm able to do more at home as opposed to I go to the office and I've got, the boss over my shoulder asking for where my TPS report was. You're going to see the busy work kind of drop a little bit. I think not for everyone, but I think you're going to see it. So I don't think it's too far off, Francis, not at all.
Yeah, so from my perspective, I see this in two kind of phases. First is that first mover advantage. I think a lot of organizations that adopt some of these practices for purposes of attraction and retention of their employees are going to see gains because those people who say, you know what, I want to be progressive minded in my work practices or otherwise, they're gonna say, well, I want to work for an organization that values me and values being on the bleeding edge of how work and culture is moving in that direction. Fine, that's on one level, but then I always step back and I say I don't blame organizations. Whatever their intentions are, I don't particularly try to presume their intentions because I can't know them. Unless there's good investigative journalism, and then maybe I will at some point. But I don't know them out the gate, right? What I really care about is the science. I care about seeing the research and understanding subsequent. Say, great example is the open office plan. Everyone loved the open office plan, and then the science came, and it showed us that it wasn't quite the panacea for reducing cost and increasing overall profitability by virtue of its people, its human capital over the long term. So we made some modifications to make open offices better, more useful for people. So we need to not just think about this from the perspective that, yeah, sure, maybe the 4-day work week will work for people in person. Maybe the 4-day work week virtually will work for people. Maybe hybridization of our remote workforces will work for people. What we need to do is we need to step back and again, think about this from a more balanced perspective. Yes, people need to test these things, like Tower Paddleboards, Stefan Arstall in implementing the 4-day week work. He's seen a really great response for his company in terms of being able to go in that direction. I can't remember the example of the name of the company that went and started paying all of their employees at least $75,000 USD per year.
Yeah. And they were deemed as crazy, and now all of a sudden the success has been phenomenal.
Right, paying people a living salary, wild idea. like it's.
You're always going to have lounger ants too. I mean, one of the things I found when I was at a conference once is we had to study different animal kingdoms and different species, and there is actually an ant that they call the lounger ant. And in a colony, there will be ants that just go along with the colony and don't contribute at all. They're just there. They don't lift anything, but they kind of seep off the colony. In every work environment, you're going to have that. To root out it's inherent in the animal kingdom. There are people that are there. There are people in the world that are going to do that as well. So you can't, it's not a one size fits all solution, I think is, the biggest thing we can take away from this. And for some, it's going to be, it also depends on the size of the institution as well, right? Like how quickly can you steer the culture ship? The bigger the organization, the slower you have to do it. Otherwise it's going to capsize, right? So I think, again, just like I said earlier, when you start to adopt some of the tactics and tricks and tools you're going to learn here at the time, at the summit, they're going to have to do it piece by piece. If they try to do it too quickly all at once, it's going to really affect them. And I think that the idea here is it's going to be interesting. The next 5 years especially are going to be really interesting, because we're just starting to see what it's going to look like. It's going to be it's a fascinating time, and by adopting some of these tactics now, it's going to be so much more beneficial, I think, for everybody going forward.
Yeah, and to kind of close out my thought here, which is that that's the first mover kind of concept. And once we see the science start to pay us more information, we'll be able to see from the research whether or not those tactics work. So I always say to everybody, as you come and start to approach the situation, especially in the face of a forcing function like the pandemic that caused much of the population, not all of the population on the planet, by the way, was all of a sudden working from home. There were people who had to be frontline and going to work. And I feel for them, but I also feel for the organizations that are now going to implement some of these policies and fail. And when that happens, I want them to fail with grace. I don't want them to feel bad for having made choices by testing strategies. And this relates to you, which is that you may take some of these strategies and fail, and that is okay. Fail with grace. Understand that this is a learning process. I always think about productivity and science. I see them coupled together, and I see you as productivity scientists. You must look at this from an experimentation perspective, and when you test in an experimental phase, you test and then you determine whether or not it worked for you. When it doesn't work for you, take your notes and chuck the stuff that doesn't work away, and then you set up the next experiment. And life is just one series of productivity experiments after another, and we don't judge, right? We kind of have that third-party piece where we don't judge people for those things. We sit back and say, we've learned something new, right? We confirmed, yes, this works. We confirmed this doesn't work. Next experiment. And so we need to keep doing that. And we can't look at organizations and blame organizations or blame other kinds of programs for these things. We need to take some level of, they tested this, experimented, and that didn't work. Now, when they, of course, choose to keep trying those things and they keep failing, then maybe we can put judgment. I'm not in the judging world. I'm in the what's working for you. I love the phrase a friend of mine always says. She goes, how's that working for you? and whenever I have a problem and I'm talking to her about it and she says, how's that working for you? It immediately responds it elicits from me this response that's, oh yeah, that's right. That's not working for me. That's why I'm asking you that question. Let me set up a new experiment. Let me try something new, because if I try to do the same thing and get this, get a different result, there goes again that Einsteinian definition of insanity. So we want to do that, and we don't want to. I think we live in this blame and shame culture, and if we could just step away from that a little bit, then we ourselves individually in our personal productivity systems can then embrace a theory of resiliency, of productivity resiliency, because it's not about the pandemic, or it's not about the next time you have a fight with your spouse. It's not the next time your boss comes in and yells at you. It's about you being able to be productive in the face of the constant chaos of life. Life is chaotic, and actually that's kind of the beauty of it, right? Like, life is interesting. If it was all mundane, I always say, like, if you're a king or if you're a pauper, right, both have their pains. The king is banality, right? Have the comforts of life, nothing, or maybe they're in, there may be all kinds of conflict at the top. But either way, you don't get a pass from suffering, no matter where you are on the food chain, right? There's always going to be some level of conflict and chaos. Your job is to be resilient in and amongst that. Being productive is learning that sense of resiliency. Being productive, no matter what the changes are that's coming at you. I think Trevor Lawbear noted in the chat earlier about resiliency and the flexibility of systems, and being able to set up those frameworks to be able to be resilient in that.
You know, really quick, you mentioned the idea of chaos, and I mentioned WandaVision earlier. And there's this quote that I loved from the movie Age of Ultron, where Vision said, "Humans are odd. They think order and chaos are somehow opposites and try to control what won't be. But there's grace in their failings." And I think that's one of the things that I think we have to keep in mind. And to your point, every scientist is different too, Ray. So someone mentioned in the chat, they're going to experiment. They tried one thing for one day and then bailed, right? And some people are going to try things for 30, 40, 60 days, whatever. So be your own scientist too along the way. Again, much like we said, don't follow our ingredients to the T. Build your own recipe. The same thing goes for these experiments. Don't be afraid to be your own scientist, as opposed to, okay, well, this is how Ray did it. This is how Mike did it. This is how Francis did it. Be your own, because productivity ultimately at the end of the day is personal. Even when business isn't personal, productivity always is.
That's right. The opportunity we have, I guess, is that we get to be scientists at a time of massive change. And I think what we've been saying is that things are in flux, which means that we have a huge opportunity as we experiment. And the summit comes at a good time because we're not back at work yet. So we haven't gotten back into the fray of transitioning back. This is that fluid time where it's a great time to experiment, hear new ideas, try new approaches, and then solidify them and prepare ourselves for a time when they may be challenged, when it's time to go back to be in the office, or it's time to be back on the road, and it's time to be on airplanes. That's some of what we prefer to do, and we know that works may actually get challenged. And so this is great timing. So guys, I want to point folks to the direction of your talks. So both Mike and Ray have done pre-recorded sessions. Ray is entitled Making Notes Actionable with Evernote, and Mike's is entitled How to Build a Bulletproof Blocks of Time. So these are both downloadables that you can listen to once they're released on the respective days. And according to my schedule, these gentlemen are returning to talk with us. Let's see. Ray, when is yours? Yours is on 11 o'clock on Saturday. And
no, I didn't see myself. I'm like, wait, what? I'll come back.
I don't have you on coming back, Mike. Do I come back live? What the heck?
Peace out.
I'm going to fix that. I have a time slot with your name on it. I think our audience wants to hear more from you. So you're going to get a call from me.
I built some blocks of time in for this over the course of the next few days. So absolutely.
All right, great. I'm gonna beg you for a bit more generosity. So guys, these guys have been very kind and generous with their time this morning, but they also sat in front of a computer and did recorded sessions. And those, if you ever tried to do it, those are not the easiest to develop. So my big thanks to Mike Vardy and Ray Sidney Smith for their contribution, not just this morning, but to the summit, and to your support generally, guys, to all the work that we're doing here at the Task Management and Time Blocking Virtual Summit, but also for the work that you do in the productivity world. The two of you are paragons. You are leaders and you're thought leaders.
Thanks for having us, Francis.
On behalf of all
Ray,
folks listening in today, I want to thank you.
When we can get together again in Pittsburgh, I'll be back. I love that city.
Or DC or New York, you tell me. I'm always happy to. It's just it'll just be good to be back out and meeting people face to face again. So
absolutely. Hey, and Francis, thanks for putting this together. No, I'd love. Hey, Jamaica. I'd love to go to Jamaica. My wife would rather go to Jamaica than Pittsburgh, I think.
with no disrespect to Pittsburgh, yes.
I suspect. Great. All right, guys, thanks so much. I'm going to turn off the recording, and then I'm going to have you turn off your microphones and your cameras, and let's invite Ola up to join us here on the platform. So Ola is from Nosby, company that we've been mentioning a couple of times as we've been talking. Ola, I'm thinking you're in Spain, but I could be wrong. But Ola's going to take us through a little bit about Nosby teams. So I said before that Nosby.
Hi. Hello.
I said before.
Greetings from Poland,
there we go.
not Spain, but Poland.
Great. I said before. Poland, not Spain. Okay, boy, I wasn't even close. But I said before that NOSBI Teams has been about solving the problem of managing tasks in work environments where people cooperate with each other or don't cooperate with each other. And everyone knows that perhaps that's a problem. And I'd love you to share quickly just what are some of the challenges that NOSBI Teams is designed to solve. That's different from regular NOSBI. So regular NOSBI is for the individual. NOSBI Teams is for solving problems that groups have in managing tasks between them. You know, when you don't do that well, you end up with chaos and acrimony and blame and all these things that are awful.
So first, I would like to thank you for inviting me. I must say that I'm really envious of you so being natural in front of camera. For me as an introvert, this is like an introvert's hell, but I'll manage to keep up and be the best self. So as you might have already learned, NOSBI is one of the sponsors of this summit, and I would like to tell you a little bit more about what we do. So earlier on chat, during a discussion about tools and methodologies, Julie wrote that there is only what works best for you. And it's true when you're thinking about your own productivity system, but finding a good productivity tool for a team is a little bit more tricky, right? Because you've got a lot of individuals, they have own tastes, their own liking, and you know, sometimes the tool won't work for one person, but it will fit perfectly for a second person. So what we really want to do is we want to change the way you think about tasks, because we consider tasks that are not meant to be personal, but they are meant to be shared. We believe that people should stop keeping tasks for themselves. So NOSBI started out like 14 years ago as a one-person company when Michael, who is also here, created a personal productivity system based on getting things done methodology. And the current version of it, like that is NOSBI Personal, is like our pride and joy, and users from all around the world became their most productive self at ease. So it's a place where you can put your tasks, you can organize them, you can get them done, but we didn't want to stop there. We realized that most productivity systems are pretty much like personal. And even when someone's working in a team, they don't share their tasks list with anyone else. So because of that, the communication, it would be like the communication between coworkers isn't effective enough because people are not aware of what you're working on and what's your workload and how your day is planned. So in our professional life, we are rarely working alone. So we need to collaborate. In many companies, people try to keep up with their to-dos and team communication using emails, like you've mentioned earlier, but you already know how inefficient this can be, like tons of CCs, BCCs, replying to lengthy messages, and they have multiple issues in there. And group chats like Slack also give you this illusion of clear communication, but so many things get lost, both in the talk on chat and in the emails, and the responsibility is dispersed, not to mention that chat messages aren't actionable at all, so you cannot check them off, you cannot delegate them, they are just hanging there. And with NOSBI Teams, we want to change that, because NOSBI Teams is a cloud-based app that is all about task-based communication in a team. And this is exactly what we call it, it's task-based communication. So we created it to help teams from all around the world improve their team communication and productivity using tasks and projects that you already know from GTD. It's an app that is simple and easy to learn and easy to use. By default, task lists within shared projects are accessible to all team members, and everyone can see the team's tasks and they can contribute, collaborate, and communicate through task comments. All the details about specific tasks are there. It's like due date, attachments, notes. And if you want to help someone, or if you want someone to help you, you can delegate it or mention the other person in a comment. So they will instantly receive information about the task in their app. So you might say, but if I share so many tasks, I'm going to be overwhelmed because there's so many tasks in a team. It's like too much. But we are the productivity experts, so we figured out a way to keep you focused while sharing tasks. And here I have the app. You can see it on, let me just make it a little bit less shiny. So the app is here. It's pretty simple. I hope that Michael will post a screenshot there from the app, but you've got 4 sections. That is priority, incoming, activity, and single tasks. And priority is a place where only you can choose your priority tasks. You simply star them. They are your priority, only you set them. In incoming, you get tasks that people delegate to you, in which they mention you, and where you get your reminders. Activity is where you can view the activity from all the projects you follow. And single task is where you store your own tasks that you are not ready to share with anyone. So thanks to those 4 views, you control what's going on in your team. Every member of the team has access to most, if not all, the projects, because they can choose what projects they want to follow, but they remain the access to other non-followed projects, and they can check them out whenever they need it. So everyone is in the loop. Everyone is up to date. Everyone can find the information, they can look it up, and they have it right there in one app. So the tasks indeed belong to everyone. It's not like everyone is responsible for them. The responsibility is for one person only, and but still, everyone has access to those tasks and those task lists. So with Nozbe Teams, we want to show that productivity systems shouldn't be self-centered. They should be open, and the communication should be open, and this can drastically improve your team's work. And I think that tomorrow, during the summit, Michael will show you exactly why everyone should have access to all the team's tasks and projects, and why that approach is better in the long term. So the best part is that Nozbe Teams is free for 5 people with 5 projects, and you can try it out for free with no time limit. So you can invite a few members to your team, start a few projects, and see if it works for you. And the premium plans for more team members, they start with $19 per month. So Nozbe Teams is an app that is cloud-based. It synchronizes instantly. All your data is safe. We keep multiple copies on trusted servers. You can download it for iOS, Android, and use it in the web. So especially now, like you've mentioned, when so many of us are working remotely, the clear communication is like crucial, right? To maintain the efficiency and productivity, we must communicate better. And Nozbe Teams is here to help you just to achieve your goals together with your team.
Great. As far as I can tell, team-based task management is going to be a factor of our future reality. There is no way we're going to put up with, how it is. You're the one who's doing all the work, and there are other people who aren't doing anything, and no one knows except you and them that everything you ask them to do just falls into a deep, dark place, which and never ever gets done. The 2 of you know it, but nobody else has visibility into really what's going on. And they may even point the finger at you and say,
you need to
holding up your, and be like, but I tried, but
in order to succeed, every member should see the bigger picture. Like they should know what's happened before, what's happening now, and what are the plans for the future. without it, they won't know why they're doing what they're doing, why they have tasks that they're responsible for. Like, what do they do?
Right.
They need to know what's going on. And that's basically the philosophy behind Nozbe Teams and why we developed the app and use it, because we use it exclusively as our productivity tool in our team. We manage our company's work using Nozbe Teams.
Right. And it's just in time for the dispersion that we're experiencing. You know, just in time for dispersed teams that really don't see each other every day, and you can't tap on the shoulder. You can't go to lunch with somebody and say, hey, by the way, that thing I gave you 2 weeks ago, what happened? You can't do all these things that you normally do.
What is fun, we've been working remotely for 14 years now. I've been in Nozbe for 6 years, and all of the time the company has been working remotely, so we know what we are doing. It's not like we're just new people in the pandemic starting out the remote work business model.
Right. You really have a story to tell of your own experience, and you have an app to offer companies that are for the first time experiencing dispersed teams, and the lack of trust that comes when you don't really know if your colleague is working on the thing that you want him to work on. You have no visibility until the due date comes and he or she says, oh, yeah, you wanted me to do that? Then you have a problem. Great. Well, Ola, thanks so much. You know, we appreciate, on behalf of the summit, we would like to thank you guys at Nozbe for being one of our sponsors, and for, like I said before, making free attendance possible for hundreds of people. It really has been a huge contribution. And tomorrow at 10:30, Mike is going to come and I'm going to be speaking with him on the principles of task management by teams. And it's good to not just talk principle, but to have an app that actually brings these together. Probably for the first time that I'm aware of, because I don't know of any other attempt to manage tasks in teams at that level of granularity. So thanks to you guys at Nozbe. Please say hello to everybody on the team and thank them for their support.
Thank you, Francis.
And thanks so much for sharing at the Task Management and Time Blocking Summit. All right, all the best. You're welcome.
Sure.
Bye-bye. If you turn off your camera and it'll automatically take you down from the stage. So guys, there you have it. I want to thank the Optimizer and Nozbe for their support of our summit. I want to thank Mike and Ray for their hard work in thinking through these issues and sharing them, and for spending time with us. Guys, please put something in the chat to thank everyone who's worked so hard to share with us this morning. You can put a clapping emoji, put a smiley emoji, put a thank you guys, anything you want to put, just to have them know that you're appreciative of the time that they spent with us this morning. Ola, Marva is asking you to connect with her on LinkedIn. Great, thanks guys. Okay, so the next session, so we're now going to be on I'm not calling it a break, but our next live session is at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, and it's going to be a panel discussion on the recent past, the history of task management, what's been happening, what's brought us to this point. That's the main focus, but they're going to be looking at solutions, of course, going forward, but they're going to be looking at the past to figure it out. And between now and then, I invite you to go pick up one of those, or 2 or 3 of those downloads. You can even listen to them at 1.5 speed or 2 times speed or whatever is comfortable for you. There's a lot of great information that has been released, and the presenters have been working really hard on your behalf. Put their ideas together and put them on video for you. So we're signing out from the Task Management and Time Blocking Virtual Summit. Actually, the room is going to be open for another 30 minutes. If you want to just network and chat with other people, you're free to do so. I won't be closing the room until the top of the hour, which would be 12 o'clock Eastern time. So I'll go on to do other things, but the room will be open for you to go network and talk to other people. Take care, guys. All the best. hold on to your chairs. Everything's about to